Aints put aside his questions for the time being and gestured to Narbril with his chin that she should get ready. In response, she focused on each of the Swords of Darkness members in turn. So Momon and Nabe will go away for a little while, she said. Once they return, we'll start gathering. No one could complain if that was what the requester had decided. The Swords of Darkness all nodded once or twice to show they approved of the plan. With the proposals and cautionary notes of the final check finished, Enfira called everyone to go. The group shouldered their bags and stepped into the forest. In the area where the villagers had cut trees, the ground was dry and walking was as easy as hiking a well-tended trail. But gradually, their surroundings morphed into what one would be tempted to call a green labyrinth. In the forest, where there were no landmarks, and it was impossible to even tell which direction they had come from, there was a sense of helplessness, as if they'd been swallowed up. That combined with the imposing presence of the towering trees would probably be enough to scare normal humans. But Aints, aside from a faint vestige of his human self clinging to his undead mind, was not afraid. So he calmly admired the splendid scenery born of Mother Nature. He even found himself thinking, the forests and other nature areas in Yggdrasil really were just game graphics. His feelings were mixed. He was proud of how well made the Great Tomb of Nazarick was, but he hadn't realized a forest untouched by humans could be this moving. He understood why Blue Planet loved the outdoors so much. While appreciating the forest, he was on the lookout, of course, but detected no movement. It was very quiet. Quite far away, he could hear birds or some other animals twittering, but apart from that, there was nothing that gave him the sense that there was anything alive in these woods. He could see Lukrut walking cautiously at the front of the line, exercising all 5 senses to the fullest. The ranger seemed to have judged that there was nothing hiding in their vicinity, but there is. Aints thought proudly of the one who was probably silently tailing them at that very moment. Perhaps because the sun couldn't penetrate to the ground, the forest was surprisingly cool. The party proceeded through it quietly. Most of them were nervous. The mental strain combined with the effort of walking over the uneven terrain had sweat beading on everyone's foreheads. Eventually, they reached an open area about 55 yards in diameter. Here we are, Enfira said. This will be our base as we gather the herbs. Enfira set down his bag. The others followed his example, but no one relaxed. They scanned the area and made sure they were combat ready, just in case they weren't in human territory anymore. Okay, then allow Nabe and me to go out for a little while as we discussed earlier. Upon receiving Enfira's okay, Aints tied a rope to a tree. He stepped into the forest holding the other end. It was thin but well-made rope that wouldn't break from just friction with the ground. Aints and Nabe tried to go in as straight a line as possible. Normally that would be next to impossible because trees would get in the way. But since the rope showed the route they had come, even these two, who weren't accustomed to walking in forests, were able to go nearly straight. Soon, about 55 yards into the woods, where their rope was running out, they stopped. Looking back, trees blocked the view, so there was no chance they'd be seen. Someone nearby could deal with anyone following them, so they didn't have to worry about anything. Here seems good. My lord, now we can have our reputation-building meeting. A question, if I may, what exactly are you planning to do? Bring back a huge amount of that herb they are looking for? Aints looked at her without responding, and then shook his head. I am going to fight the wise king of the forest. He could practically see the question mark over her head, so he explained further. I want to make sure they understand exactly how strong I am. Surely the fight against the ogres was enough to do that. That is true, but ogres aren't enough. There is a huge difference between them going home and telling everyone that the adventurer Momon halved an ogre in a single swing, versus the adventurer Momon repelled the wise king of the forest. It is obvious which rumor would spread faster and gain me a better reputation. Hence the show I am about to put on for them. Aha, brilliant as always, Lord Aints. That is a perfect plan, but how will you find the wise king of the forest? That is already taken care of. And that means... In response to Narbril's query, a third voice entered the conversation. Hello, it means I am here. Alarmed by the sudden voice, Narbril looked threateningly in the direction it came from, already aiming a spell with her right hand. But as soon as she saw who it was, she calmed down. Mistress Aura, don't surprise me like that. Sorry, a dark elf girl peeked out from the shadows of a tree, giggling. She was one of the guardians of the 6th level of the Great Tomb of Nazarick, Aura Bella Fiora. How long have you been there? Since you and Lord Aints came into the forest. As a beast tamer and ranger, stalking was easy for her. Luckrut was a ranger too, but there was a big gap in their skill levels. He couldn't detect aura, so I found the magical beast known as the Wise King of the Forest and sent it after you, right, Lord Aints? Right. According to what we know, the Wise King of the Forest has a silver coat of fur, a long snake-like tail and 4 legs. Does that description ring any bells? Yes, no problem. I think I know who it is. Aura responded quickly, glancing up into the trees. So should I just control it? I thought about it, but no, let us not do that. As a beast tamer, it would be easy for her to get him under her command. But things would get messy if it came out that the fight had been rigged. It was smarter to avoid as many worries as possible right from the start. By the way, Aura, how is the work on your orders proceeding? My lord, she dropped humbly to one knee. Aints didn't he think it was very Aura-like, but he stayed in character as her master while he listened to her report. Work on your orders, explore the woodlands, and get a decent understanding of what it's like in there. Check if anyone would swear alliance to Nazarick, and set up a place to stockpile things is going well. Aints acknowledged her with just an "oh good." Before he left for Rantel, he de-assigned each of the Guardians a job. Needless to say, the reasons he was having Aura and Mare investigate the forest were to guarantee Nazarick's safety and to acquire intelligence. And the stockpile area was perhaps more correctly called an evacuation shelter. They could hide there if they couldn't make it back for some reason. Building a fake base to keep Nazarick concealed seemed like a good precaution to take. He was planning on storing all sorts of different resources there. Finding life forms that would obey them would allow them to check whether power leveling was possible. It would also help them learn how leveling worked in this world. To fulfill those duties, Aura and Mare, plus the minions building the facilities, were dispatched to the woods. That was a gigantic abnormality for the forest to absorb. It upset the power balance, which might explain why those ogres ventured so far into the Wise King's territory to get out. However, the stockpiling area will take more time. Well, that can be helped. It hasn't even been that long since I gave you the order. They had brought golems, undead, and other minions who could work without sleep or rest. Even so, there was a lot of work to get done. It wouldn't happen overnight. Take as much time as you need and aspire to perfection. Equip it with defenses so it won't fall in an attack. Yes, sir, understood. Okay then, Aura. I'll leave the Wise King of the Forest up to you as we planned. Right, Aura sprang to her feet. After she parted with Aints, as if on cue, a huge wolf with a gleaming coat of jet black hair slowly appeared from behind a tree. Its fiery crimson eyes harbored a profound wisdom, which made it clear that it was no mere beast. And that wasn't all. Curled around a different tree was a hexaptal monster that looked like a cross between a chameleon and an iguana. Its scaly skin was changing colors with tremendous speed. It almost looked like waves were rolling over its body. It was just as big as the wolf. Fen, Quadracile, worried about me, huh? Fen the wolf rushed at Aura, snorting. Quadracile stretched out his tongue to pat her on the cheek. Hey, I gotta go do my job for Lord Aints. Aura was one of the weakest of Nazarick's floor guardians. There were domain guardians more powerful than her, but that was her solo strength. Her true strength was in numbers. She controlled 100 magical beasts at their level cap of 80. With support from her skills, they were probably equivalent to level 90. Figuring in her pack, she could probably outdo any of the other individual guardians. The familiars with her now were 2 of her favorites, divine beasts, an elite type of magical beast, Fen the Fenrir, and Quadracile the Itzamna. They both understood and stopped pestering her. Okay, shall we go then? Accompanied by the 2 beasts, Aura raced through the forest. Despite all the trees, she moved as fast as the wind, never needing to slow down. A little less than 30 minutes after she began her sprint, she reached her destination. A satisfied grin that clashed with her youthful features spread across her face. There was something innocent about it, but also something cruel. I kinda wanted to keep it, but oh well, Lord Aints' orders, she said to herself, sounding more like she was talking about a piece of jewelry than a pet. The reason she knew the location of its nest was that she had already been considering acquiring it. Compared to the other monsters she controlled, the wise king of the forest was extremely weak and not very valuable. Still, the idea of a completely unknown monster excited her collector's soul. She felt it was a shame she had to give up on that idea, but it was for her ultimate master. She had sworn her loyalty to him. There was nothing she could do. Let us see Aura changed the composition of the gas in her lungs. An exhalation of unnatural, recombined components escaped her slightly parted rosy lips. Now she had breath that was capable of manipulating emotions and more. Usually it would just be a passive skill of questionable utility. It would only disperse throughout a limited area around her. But if she wanted to, she could combine it with a ranged skill. This would allow her to strike a pinpoint at a distance of 1.25 miles, even in the densest forest. This time she didn't even have to go that far. She would keep her presence hidden and sneak up close to her target. Even a magical beast with exceptional senses couldn't register Aura now, much less normal wild animals. With her presence extinguished, she walked right up to the wise king of the forest and breathed on it. Phu. The fear-inducing effect woke up the napping king immediately. With all its hairs standing on end, it hurried out of there, lickety-split. The quadrupedal beast, driven by terror to sprint at full speed, was oddly fast, but Aura in pursuit was faster. She was like death incarnate as she pursued, guiding the beast to Aints with a breath here and there. If it dies, I am gonna see if I can get its pelt. The forest stirred. Luckrut pricked his ears up at the change in the air and scanned the vicinity cautiously, a grim look on his face. Something's coming. At that, the other swords of darkness, who had been helping gather herbs, drew their weapons and assumed fighting stances. A moment later, Aints grabbed his great swords. Is it the wise king of the forest? There was no response to Ninja's anxious voice as he began packing the herbs into a bag. Everyone just silently stared into the depths of the forest. Ah, this is bad, Luckrut muttered, predictably sober considering the circumstances. Something big is charging this way. I don't know why it's zigzagging, but from the sound of the undergrowth being trampled, it seems like it will be here soon. I just can't tell if it's the wise king of the forest or not. We withdraw. Staying here is dangerous whether it's the wise king of the forest or not. Whatever it is, we've probably trespassed on its territory, so there's a good chance it will come after us, Peter announced and turned to Aints. Momman, you'll take the rear? Yes, leave it to me. We'll take care of it. The swords of darkness peppered Aints with words of encouragement and then took Enfira and began their retreat to the edge of the forest. Momman, don't try to do the impossible, okay? The trust Enfira had in Aints was audible, and his eyes sparkled under his hair. Aints felt awkward and urged them to leave as quickly as possible. As he watched them all depart, he was briefly uneasy about whether he and Narbril might get lost in the woods, but he realized Aura could lead them out when it was all over. The bigger problem was crap, this might not even be the wise king of the forest. Even if I take it to Nazarick, I need some proof that I drove it off. Should I chop off a leg? Lord Aints. A shadow loomed behind some trees in the distance where Narbril was looking. It was concealed, so they couldn't tell what it was, and since the sun wasn't shining on it, it was impossible to confirm if it was silver. We've got company, or maybe we are the company, Aints quipped in his head as he moved in front of Narbril. They didn't know the wise king of the forest's combat ability or what level he would be. Protecting Narbril was an obvious thing to do. Casters were at a disadvantage in hand-to-hand fights. The moment Aints stood in front of Narbril, he felt the air bend. He shielded himself with one of his great swords. Then a metallic screech echoed out, and one of his arms took some weight. It was the shock of something hitting his sword with a fair amount of speed. Aints saw an unusually long tail covered in scales like a snake withdrawing back into the trees, so its tail can attack like a whip, but from the sound and feel, it was like a whip made of metal, and the fact that its range was more than 20 yards was a pain. How did it even go about its daily life dragging that thing around? Aints didn't have skills for frontline fighting, so he had no idea what to do except move in to make it a fight at closer quarters. He exhaled. Of course, he didn't have lungs, so he only pretended to. The tension went out of his shoulders, and he was more prepared to take up the chase if necessary. Then a deep, quiet voice came from behind the trees. A magnificent job blocking my first attack, that it was. It may be the first time I have met such an opponent. That it was. Aints adjusted his illusionary face and remembered the words were translated. So that was the closest his brain could get to the original. Well, invader of my territory, if you flee now, I'll refrain from pursuing you out of respect for your magnificent defense, but it's your choice that it is. Don't be ridiculous. I stand to gain from defeating you. More importantly, are you ever going to come out, or don't you have enough confidence in your looks? Maybe you ray shy? Well, you've got a mouth on you that you have, invader. Very well, gaze in wonderment at my majesty and no fear. The wise king of the forest slowly pushed through the bushes and revealed itself before Aints. The eyes of Aints' illusionary face nearly popped out of their illusion sockets. Hoo. I can sense your terror and astonishment from under your helmet, that I can. The beast's face twisted into a smile, and her tail wriggled. There were strange markings on her silver body. They almost looked like writing. She was big, probably as big as a horse, but not very tall. She was wide from side to side, but flat. The wise king of the forest slowly began to close the distance between them. What the heck? Aints felt something difficult to describe. His undead mind suppressed strong emotions, so this feeling wasn't very powerful. Still, it had been a long time, even dating back to his Yggdrasil days, since he had faced a monster and felt like this. I'd like to ask you something. What race are you? I am what you all call the wise king of the forest. I have no other name. I don't have one, no. Ain't swallowed spit he didn't have and asked, are you a Jungarian hamster? The wise king of the forest looked like a Jungarian hamster, as far as Aints could tell. Her hair was more snow-white than silver. Her eyes were black and round. Altogether, she looked like a big ball of moche. Hamsters didn't have long tails like that, and they didn't grow to be bigger than humans, but Aints couldn't think of anything else to compare her to. If you asked 100 people, 100 people would say she was a hamster, perhaps a giant Jungarian hamster, or maybe a mutant Jungarian hamster. The wise king of the forest tilted her face. It was hard to tell where her head ended and her body began. Her nose twitched. She replied, I've lived alone ever since I was born, that I have. Since I know none of my kind, I cannot answer your question. Perhaps you know my race, do you? Am I as good as know it, I suppose? A friend of mine once had a pet that looked just like you. Aints recalled his guildmate. He didn't log into Yggdrasil for a week because his hamster died of old age. The admiring ooh from Narbril behind him must have been because it was information about one of the 41 supreme beings. What? How dare someone make a pet out of a monster who looks like me? The wise king of the forest puffed her cheeks into a pouty face. Did he upset her? Or was that supposed to look threatening? Or all Aints knew was that she didn't have food packed in there? And I would like to hear the details, that I would. As a living thing, I must ensure the survival of my species, that I must. If there are others like me and I don't create descendants, then I am a horrible being, that I am. By the wise king of the forest's logic, Aints hadn't made any kids, so he was a horrible living thing. Mentally giving the excuse that he was already undead and not a living thing, he replied apathetically, well, it wasn't as big as you. Is that so? Perhaps it was a baby. No. It was an adult and could fit in the palm of my hand. The wise king of the forest's hairs drooped. She was probably a little discouraged. Then it would be rather impossible. So I really am the only one. If you were a cool race, that would be great, but you ray a hamster. Not that I don't feel bad for you, but if you did have relatives, they'd probably multiply like mice. I think the world would end. The wise king of the forest's hairs stood on end. Her cute, round eyes stayed the same, but when she spoke, her anger was palpable. Such impertinence. Ensuring the survival of one's species is a serious matter. And I've been living my whole life on my own. You would want to make some friends too, would you not? I don't disagree. Forgive me. Thinking of his guildmates, Aints apologized. Still, he wasn't sure how he felt about being reminded of them by, and apologizing to, this hamster. Well, I forgive you. Let us stop this pointless chatter. We shall fight to the death. Now then, invader, I'll turn you into my dinner, that I will. Aints felt less and less interested in continuing. Even if the wise king of the forest's cuteness was an evolutionary advantage, Aints wasn't motivated. When he imagined himself, the ruler of the great tomb of Nazareth, facing off against a giant hamster, it was just too shameful. And if he killed her and presented the giant Jungarian hamster corpse, saying, "This is the wise king of the forest." It was a fierce battle, and I couldn't drive her away. What would the swords of darkness think? No matter how optimistically Aints considered the situation, awkwardly kind looks were the best he could imagine getting. Then instead of killing her, he would capture her and extract her wisdom. Nabe, fall back. Aints had forced himself to muster the will to fight. Upon his order, Nabe bowed deeply and withdrew to the edge of the clearing, confident her master would be victorious. I don't mind if you both fight me at once. That I don't fighting a hamster with backup is too embarrassing. Aints spat as he readied his weapons. Sensing that he moved into a combat stance, the wise king of the forest crouched.